1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Könnt ihr mich hören? Okay. Oh, this is loud. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the new semester here at the Berlin University of the Arts. Welcome to the summer semester 2024. My name is Lukas Feireiss. I'm a visiting professor for transdisciplinary artistic and design education at the UDK Berlin. This is the spotlight. This is the sixth rendition of Juxtaposition, a public lecture series on perspectives on contemporary cultural production. The timing was not ideal today because it's the first day of the semester. You kind of could just register today, so there will be more people showing up, I guess, in the coming weeks. But nonetheless, any of you who've joined Juxtapositions before? 2. Okay, so mainly newbies. So this is a series of talks that have been running here for 2.5 years now. This is the sixth semester. And a series of talks that promotes transdisciplinary thinking in the creative realm. A series of talks that brings together artists, designers, architects, musicians, fashion designers, etc., curators, etc., writers, to kind of share their work in the world with you, to kind of share how they work, in how many fields they interact. So the, let's say, common denominator of all the guests is that they don't really fit into one category, but they kind of all draw outside the lines. And it's a lecture series that is open to all faculties of the University of Arts here in Berlin. Out of curiosity, who of you are studying at the Bildende Kunst? And who of you are studying fine art right now? This is literally one that I see in the room right now. Or architecture. Who's architecture here? Who comes from design, product design? How about visual communication? Art and media? Music. Wow, wonderful. It's actually great. Music is probably one of the few lecture series that music students attend outside of their curriculum. It's a very strict curriculum. How about acting? Okay, not yet. So, but imagine you are maybe a quarter or half of the actual attendees of this course. I think it was too quick in the beginning of the semester. Dancing? Jazz? Any of the Berlin Career College study programs? Anyone not from the UDK? Wonderful. Oh, 5. Anyone who's not connected to any university at all? Yes. See, that's the whole point. So the point of this lecture series is, A, it's free, it's public, you can bring all your friends and family every time you want, because it's my ambition to make the academy more porous. Like, it's such an esoteric circle, academia in general, and I'd like to open this up and make it accessible for more people. So, tell your friends, they can come every Monday at 6 o'clock. There's going to be fun content. So, that said, who of you again most of you are UDK students, no? Can you raise your hands quickly? Yeah. So I would like to start basically with a congratulation, because it's actually really, really hard to get in here. So you have already proven yourself, and there's probably more people that did not get in than those that got into the school. So you can actually be proud of yourself, and I really mean it. My story is, I think I told this also last semester, after I graduated from high school here in Berlin, I always wanted to study at the UDK. So I prepared my application, and then kind of on the way here, I got so scared that I didn't hand in my application. This happened twice. So I never applied because I was too scared of being rejected. And then I ended up studying philosophy and comparative religious studies and ethnology, a whole different trajectory. And well, now I ended up here again, but that's a whole nother story. So I'm saying congratulations that you're here. It really means something. The amount of people that applied to the school is insane. So having made it here is already fantastic. But I started here at the UDK with a task, really with a mission or a proper job description. The title of my visiting professorship is Transdisciplinary Artistic and Design Education. It's a title that I did not make up, but they gave me, and that was based on my practice, my curatorial practice and my educational practice, in trying to kind of connect the dots between different disciplines. But there's more behind that, or more to that, because there is something as what we would call in German überfachlicher Kompetenzerwerb, or the acquisition of inter-trans cross-disciplinary skills by the by the Berlin University law. And this is a quote from that one, and that's actually quite wild if you think about it. So they recommend a quarter, but it should be a fifth of your study should be done, or should be possible to be done in other study programs. I don't know, if you're studying architecture, you should be able to do that in fashion, or if you're studying fashion, you should do that in product design, or if you're doing product design, you should do it in medicine. This is for all Berlin universities, and that's a lot. That's 25% of your entire studies can or should be in other programs in order to get this acquisition of inter-cross whatever transdisciplinary skills. So what I'm doing here, what I'm offering here, is kind of this kind of funky thing here at the UDK, just part of a visiting professorship, but it is actually grounded in the Berliner Hochschulgesetz, and that's interesting to know. So whatever you're studying, bring that to your professors and say, hey, a quarter or at least a fifth of my studies I should be doing somewhere else. And you're doing it here. And I believe this is important because the work life after academia, and it doesn't really matter what you study here at the Berlin University of the Arts, but you're studying at the University of the Arts, is quite a mess out there. You know, once you pop that bubble of academia, it gets wild, and it's a very mixed bunch. And I think as students, you are very rarely prepared for the hybrid working situation that you will engage after your studies. And this is something to prepare you for that, to be able to think across disciplines, boundaries, and fields of experience. For juxtapositions, there's also an entire website called juxtapositions.net. So all of the lecturers that have been here, and we're talking about 40 speakers now, all the talks are recorded. Also, this talk is being recorded with our incredible technical assistance by Jakob here, and they're online. It's an archive of knowledge, basically. Incredible list of speakers, and you can watch them all online again. Also last semester and so forth. And what we do here is also quite, well, basically you come here and listen and participate. That's important because there's always going to be question and answer sessions at the end. And then after each session, your one homework, in order to get your credit points, is to write a personal reflection. And write is not even the right word. You can write something, literally a text, a personal reflection, or you can send in a musical piece or a drawing or a film. So the choice of media is completely up to you. But you have to personally reflect upon the last session. Okay, what stayed with me, what inspired me, what did I agree with, what did I disagree with? And this is really not for me, but for you. It's kind of an exercise to also kind of find your own voice, your own perspective, your own position. And I think that's another thing that's rarely done in the arts, is to really properly express yourself. And that starts kind of with finding your own voice and things. It doesn't have to be super smart. You just can state the obvious. Don't try to be creative. Don't try to be super intellectual. Just state the obvious. Whatever inspired you, what stayed with you. And avoid like ChatGPT summaries. You can totally tell them by now, like when students reply with ChatGPT. So this is the idea behind it. And yes, I would now like to introduce the speakers for the semester that are kind of joining us here on a bi-weekly session in Juxtaposition. And that's the first off in 2 weeks is going to be Jerzy Seymour. He's a dear friend and a colleague. We both used to run master programs of fine arts and design. He's still running one at the Sandberg Institute in Amsterdam. Mine was called Radical Cut-Up. His is still called the Dirty Art Department. And he's a UCOA-born Canadian artist, designer, and educator who really believes in the, let's say, the transformative potential of art and design and activism. He kind of tends to build communities and really engage in kind of a political discourse in very colorful ways. So Jerzy, starting, this lecture series. And then we have Guguletu. Guguletu Duma is a musician, a composer, a poet, or rather like a sonic poet of sorts, a creative producer from South Africa. And her, let's say, artistic practice plays somehow with the deconstruction and also the critique of archaic modes of representation in Southern African or African in general sonic and performance culture. So I'm very excited about her joining us here in Berlin. And after Guguletu, we have Anna Jeboa joining us. Anna Jeboa is a trained architect. She studied in Munich, taught also courses before here at the UDK Berlin. And she her research and also her artistic practice is usually dealing with systems of power in architecture and urban planning. And since 2020, she has been responsible for the overall coordination of Dekoloniale, which is about decolonial memory culture in the city, a project in Berlin here that's been running since 2020 and I think is ending towards the end of this year. So she's going to kind of share her work, how she ended up what she's doing, and also kind of introduce the whole idea and the projects of Dekoloniale. And then we have Amit with us. Amit Öğüt is another dear friend, collaborator and artist who is working across many different media and has exhibited widely around the world. I would say he's a conceptual artist that works with politics, with a great sense of humor and intellectual reflection. He was one of my tutors in the Radical Cutout Master program that I ran at the Sandberg Institute in Amsterdam, and we have kind of collaborated on many projects to kind of illustrate this kind of sense of humor or intellectual humor. Is, for example, this project, Bakunin's Barricade by Amit, which is based on a funny story. So in 1849, here in Germany, when Prussian troops tried to defeat the socialist insurgency in Dresden, there was a revolutionary anarchist called Mikhail Bakunin. He's like one of the kind of anarchist thinkers. And he said we should place all the paintings from the National Museum's collection in front of the barricades, speculating that Prussian soldiers wouldn't dare to destroy the works of art and therefore pass the barricade. So basically build a barricade and hang all the important paintings on it. And so inspired by this kind of story, or a never realized proposal by Bakunin, Öğüt has created this kind of barricade using works from the respective museum collections that he works with. So very, very high-priced works. And he also then kind of has a document that the museum has to sign that stipulates that the barricade may be requested and deployed by activists during future social uprisings. So this is the type of work that Amit engages in. And then we have Rafaela Kaczunic here. She's a creative director and an editor based in Berlin, largely, let's say, focused on visual ideation and production within culture, fashion, lifestyle, and beauty. And she is also co-founder of a cultural print and online magazine called This is Badland, dedicated to the Balkan states and beyond. So this is more the, let's say, meta perspective, rather editorial, curatorial perspective on artistic practices. She's joining with us. And finally, we have Tomias Radin here. He's a French Guadeloupean, like literally multidisciplinary artist based here in Berlin. He has a master's in fine arts from the University of Rennes in France, and works in between painting, sculpture, film, and dancing. So he's also a trained dancer and kind of combines them all in this kind of cut-up way, very, very deeply poetic and beautiful. So this is kind of the lineup for this semester for Juxtapositions. Setup is always the same. I come, I quickly say hello, I kind of read back the feedback that you're giving to me, the personal reflections, some excerpts into the room to kind of sense the vibe, introduce the speakers, and then they have about 45 minutes to talk about their practice, a proper lecture, and then it's the Q&A, and that's really the fun part, where you can ask all the questions that you want to ask. There is no such thing as a stupid question in these situations, and it's a great chance to really get in touch with them. This is eventually it's a big lecture series, but it's an intimate space. You can actually approach them and talk to them. And that's the whole point. That if you have really practical questions, you can ask them. If it's more idealistic questions, you can ask them. So there's no shame in the game with regards to that. And as I said before, it's all on the website. You can see and check out all the other lectures. But there is another lecture series that's closely connected. And to clarify this is bi-weekly. So 1 week is juxtaposition, the other one is the healing arts. I would recommend you to take part in both of them, because for both of them together you get your 2 ECTS credit points. This one here is a lecture series that I started only last semester, and it's in collaboration with the Charité, that's the main university hospital here in Berlin, and the International Society for Arts and Medicine, of which I am one of the founding members. And here, the focus is on the dialogue, the interplay between experts from the field of medicine or medical science and the arts, or let's say the cultural realm. It's an explorative lecture series where we don't have the answers yet, but it's, let's say, built on the notion that we have realized that there is a healing power to the arts, to the creative processes, and it's something that as creatives or cultural producers, we say, yeah, sure, I know that now, it helps me a lot, but there's actually now more and more, let's say, quantitative evidence supporting this claim, and even the World Health Organization, the WHO, is not known for being, out there with wild hypothesis. They had a huge report in 2019 with 3,000 case studies that shows, simply said, art heals, whether it's passively experienced or actively produced or done. That's amazing and gives us a whole new agency from even a scientific point of view. So what we're doing really, really matters. So this semester, it's always these kind of dialogues between these experts. And we start with Katharina Schmidt. She is professor for pediatric cardiology at the Charité, and Rebecca Raue, who is also a dear friend and an artist, but also a curator and founder of EFRA, which is a program that tries to bring art to kids, to small children. And Katharina is really focused on children in her practice. So the first one is really going to be also about like how to start with children, because once you're here, you've all kind of applied to University of Arts. Okay, you passed the test, but one of my biggest ambitions is to bring the power of the arts also closer to a much younger generation, to open the gates and the doors for them to even consider the arts as a possible career, as a possible way of life. And then we have Christiane Montag here. She is from the Psychiatric University Clinic at the St. Hedwig Krankenhaus and also head of the research division on psychotic disorders at the Charité, who works a lot with art-based therapy forms, and Karin Daneker, who taught art therapy actually here at the UDK and in Cologne, but was also the founder and director of the first ever master program of in art therapy at the Kunsthochschule Weißensee. She's now already retired, but they actually did a couple of research projects together and proposals, so they'll talk about their practice, like really art-based therapy and art therapy in general. And then we have Jörg Fingerhut and Elisabeth Bröhrmann. Jörg Fingerhut is actually by training a philosopher and a researcher. He is wearing a lot of hats. He's also the kind of vice chairman of the Interdisciplinary Forum for Neurourbanism, looking at the city from a neurologic point of view. And he's a professor of philosophy of mind in Munich and senior researcher at the Berlin School of Mind and Brain. But he really tries to look at how certain environments affect us and our well-being. And he's going to speak with Elisabeth from the Humboldt University, with Elisabeth Bröhrmann from the Technical University. She's an architect, and she currently holds a visiting professorship of formerly was called Architecture for Health, so architecture literally for health buildings, and now it's called Architecture for Futures. So we're looking at also like questions of planetary health. Then we have Amma Yeboah, who is a psychodynamic supervisor and psychiatrist and psychotherapist, specializing in, that's called gender-sensitive psychotherapeutic treatment. She did her promotion also at the Charité, and Sabine Koch, who's professor for empirical research for creative arts and head of the Research Institute for Creative Arts Therapies at the Erasmus University in Bonn. That's actually, they're all live and in person. This is the only online lecture that you can attend. And then, last but not least, it didn't fit on one slide. It's Jalit Sehuli and Nena Onua. Jalit Sehuli is medical director of the Department of Gynecology and Oncological Surgery at the Charité Hospital, but he's also a writer of scientific and non-scientific text. He, I think, authored 3 non-scientific fiction books, and he really uses language as a therapeutic form. And Nena is a Ghanaian, Nigerian researcher, visual artist, and historian based here in Berlin. So this is the healing arts, and they always come. So next week I'll do my introduction to the healing arts. The week after it's going to be juxtaposition, the first lecture. Afterwards is healing arts. I recommend you do both of them. They kind of will have a similar vibe, similar topics, slightly different, close, same but different. And then I offer one more thing, and this is also an open invitation, and that's a colloquium here, and I've been doing this for 6 semesters. It's called Post Protocol, the Breakfast Club. We meet every Monday morning from 10 to 1, and it's a colloquium for master students who are in the final phase of their studies, just starting to work on their thesis, and they use this as a space to kind of collectively reflect and develop their thesis. Very mixed bunch: product design, fashion, architecture, GWK, Gesellschaft und Wirtschaftskommunikation, well, all the other stuff, composition, etc. And we come together, and each time 1 or 2 person will present their ideas to the group. It can be rough ideas, doesn't have to be fully flexed and shaped, but a very unique space that I can highly recommend to join. This is Post Protocol, and it's basically for everyone that does not fully fit to whatever they're studying. So if you have the feeling, I don't really fully fit to where I am, this is the right place. Yeah, to come and join. And just for the record, I did a couple of other stuff here. As part of my visiting professorship, I've been exploring the intersection of art and technology in a course called Weak Signals, which ended up in a publication and actually 3 podcasts on the topic. I did a performative seminar on the Jewish holiday of Shavuot called Reading Ruth, and I did a collision week on problems and possibilities of appropriation here at the UDK. A few words now about myself. In a small talk, I would say I'm a curator. Doesn't really fully cover it, but say I've been since 2009 running a studio for experimental or curatorial and design experiments. Let's put it this way. And I engage in very different media when doing that. One of my main media that I use is exhibition making. It's a beautiful media because you're working in space. You kind of try to reflect ideas and topics and bring people together in literal spaces, and you can use the space to communicate. So just talking about space, I've been particularly dealing with transdisciplinary artistic practices, but also various creative practices dealing with the built environment that we live in. I'm very curious about the spaces that we build, that we live in, that we inhabit. So apart from all these kind of different exhibitions, and they're from little off spaces and galleries to institutional exhibitions in museums and in other such spaces, but kind of the variety is what makes it. And apart from exhibitions, I also really like to do books, another beautiful medium, but it's two-dimensional, no? But you can put it in your cupboard, you can keep it for the rest of your life. An exhibition is an experience, literally, that you go to once or maybe twice if you like it. It's very rarely that you ever go to an exhibition 3 times. Who of you have ever gone to an exhibition 3 times? None. See, yeah, you did. Okay, oh, good. I support that. But generally speaking, you don't. But that's the beauty of books. They can keep some part of this experience, and they all of the topics are somehow dealing with contemporary design, contemporary architecture, art, both in theory and practice. And And I've been engaged as a moderator and organizer of discursive events, of conferences and symposias, and basically also Juxtaposition is one of those, or the Healing Arts, or a series of events that I run at the Soho House, or there's of SMLXL, there's different formats, but I love to bring people together in dialogue, and I really kind of strive from that. And then there's also, this is really quick. Now this is just an introduction, so you kind of get an idea what this guy is about here, standing and talking to you. I also engage in design practices in collaboration with commercial clients and institutional clients. This happened more or less by coincidence, that after doing a couple of books and exhibitions, people approach me thinking I'm the designer behind it, which I'm not. I always work with great designers, and then somehow this kind of developed. And I've also work as an artist, or I am often invited in exhibition context, in actually international exhibitions, such as the, I don't know, Shenzhen Biennial, the Venice Biennial, the Lyon Biennial, and again the Venice Biennial, so very big international exhibitions, but also again small ones, but it's another form of creative output. All of that said, transdisciplinarity that I live and breathe is also a tricky business, because, you know, jack of all trades, master of none, you know that saying, could also be, but I actually firmly believe in the power of, let's say, cognitive diversity, you know, and the power of diversity in general, and I think we only get better in communication with others. And there's a saying by Robert Heinlein, he's a science fiction author, that's specialization is for insects, and I firmly believe. This is, do you know Frieze Magazine, my favorite meme page? Who of you knows Frieze Magazine already? Oh, then you all have to follow now. It's the best fucking meme page on contemporary art discourse. It's incredible, it makes me laugh once a day. But yeah, so what does interdisciplinary artist mean? And now it's gonna be loud when you ask what they mean by transdisciplinary artist. I told you, it's a mess. It's a mess and it gets fiery. But today is my last, sticking with the memes, is my last introduction lecture for Juxtapositions. And I've been doing this for 6 times now, and I've tried to do a different one each time, because I don't like to repeat myself, or only in parts. So today I will share my tips and tricks with you. So my personal cheat code for my professional practice and my teaching, and you can take whatever you want with you or drop whatever you don't agree with. And thereby I'm often deeply inspired by many people, in this case by the late Virgil Abloh. Maybe you know him, designer of Off-White, and was creative director of Louis Vuitton before he passed. And for those of you who participated in last semester, but you didn't, so never mind, I also started with a quote by Virgil Abloh and talking about inspirations. But this one is now from a lecture that Virgil Abloh gave in 2018 at the Graduate School of Design in Harvard, invited by Ioana Stănescu, who was the first speaker here at Juxtaposition. So I hope this works out. I'll play a snippet from it.
It's called these red slides. These red slides are cheat codes. Basically, if you can answer them, you basically give yourself a cheat code, and that's like the sort of 2.0 of these talks that I'm using. And it's things that I've had to learn. I basically work at a feverish pace in a self-serving way just to find my signature. Like, what's my DNA? Every architect, designer, artist that I look up to, you know, whether they were doing period paintings or buildings in their early career to the end of their career, there's basically a through line. So what I would challenge you in your work, no matter what, is go back. You know, go back to when you were like, your earliest memories, or the way that you thought to organize something, the way you thought to organize your closet, or what colors were your favorite. Back in that sort of like early rationale before you sort of learned too much, that's when your DNA started. And for me, that sort of leads me to my next slide.
So I'll leave up his cheat code, but this, when I saw this lecture, it was a revelation to me, because at the time, this is 2018, I've been working, you know, for quite a long time already, but I never really thought about, okay, what's actually my signature? What's the what's the DNA, as he calls it, of my practice, if for someone that doesn't know what I'm doing, what I can apply to any project, whether it's a book, an exhibition, or teaching, etc. So I give you an example quickly of my DNA, but obviously with a task for you guys to think about what's actually my signature. And as he said, it doesn't have to be professional, like you don't have to have a professional career. It can start much, much earlier. So mine are 4 points. It's creative theory, critical cut-up, collective effort, and artistic co-production. What do I mean? So I mean basically with creative theory, a somewhat applied notion of theory. Let's say creativity comes actually from the Latin. It means as much as like making something grow, to bring something forth, to produce. In theory, it comes from the Greek actually, and is understood as something as kind of to properly look at something, to speculate, to consider something. So creative theory means making something out of speculation and contemplation, or let's say theory as a seed or inspiration for creative production. That's number one. Number two for me is critical cut-up, and this means that I believe in the cut-up, in the collage, in the remix of things. I don't believe there's a single origin of something and then we kind of all we could be an artistic genius, so that we constantly collage together all our things, whether we are consciously or subconsciously, unconsciously inspired by something, but we should be doing it in a critical way. So to be aware of where you take things from and where you take them to. So I believe you should take from wherever, but be aware, be critical about where you take it from and where you take it to. And I think that's a very, let's say, liberating thought. So it says basically nothing's original, everything is a cut-up, everything is a collage. It liberates you from the pressure of, oh, like I have to be so original, but just be aware, be critical. And then it's collective effort. And that means my trust in peer-to-peer learning and the kind of understanding that whenever you enter a classroom, you create a community. It's a communal experience. We do this together. I could be standing here for a whole semester by myself, it wouldn't work. It's about us doing this together. So I really believe in this idea of kind of cumulative intelligence. Like we get smarter when we're together, like almost like a swarm intelligence. In that case, the more the merrier. The more different minds we have in the room, the better it is, I believe. There's actually another anarchist to mention, or an anarchist communist called Peter Kropotkin, who wrote this series of anthropological essays in the early 20th century, 1902, called Mutual Aid, and in which he explores the role of, let's say, mutually beneficial cooperation and reciprocity as, or what he calls the mutual aid, in the animal kingdom and human societies, both past and present. And it's really an argument against this Darwinism or Darwinistic thought that emphasizes competition and survival of the fittest. Like we do not survive in competition. We survive by working together. We mutually aid one another. So that's collective effort. And artistic co-production kind of connects. It means basically that everything we do in groups. Like nothing, literally nothing happens in isolation. And all cultural work is, or any type of work is teamwork, in one way or another, knowingly or not. And I firmly believe in that. There's almost nothing that you just do by yourself. And if you try to, don't. Things are not better when you do it by yourself, quite the opposite. You need different minds in the game. So this is my DNA, and this is really after I watched the lecture by Virgil Abloh, and I hope this happens to you now, and I was like, what could that be? What am I, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think Virgil has 8 points that make up your DNA that you can find in all of your works, whatever you do. And it's a beautiful exercise. Now, inspired by that, I was thinking, since this is my last semester here at the UDK in this position that I have, I want to share with you my DNA, so to speak, my signature with regards to teaching, with regards to education. So my education manual, I called it, because for the last 20 years now, I have acted as a, we call it in German, freischwebende Intelligenz, as a free-floating intelligence that is very much independent and detached from, let's say, normative thinking, also from the systems in which I act. So I try kind of in this teaching and performance be as unbound as possible, as critical, as sensitive and pluralistic as possible. And there's this other revelation that I had also not so long ago when I realized that intelligence comes from interlegere, and that literally means reading between the lines. And that's something that I would like to push across to all of you. Like, intelligence is reading between the lines, not taking like the obvious, but kind of questioning it more, reading in between the lines. There's another great quote that fits to that by Einstein. It's called something like, creativity is intelligence having fun. That's also beautiful, no? Like once you engage your mind, it can really do something. But in the words of the late notorious B.I.G., I've been in this game for years. It's rules to this shit. I wrote me a manual. A step-by-step booklet for you to get your game on track, not your wig pushed back.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
So, rule number uno is move against boundaries. Or, in the words of the great late author, teacher, and black feminist Bell Hooks, I celebrate teaching that enables transgressions. So a movement against and beyond boundaries. It is a movement which makes education the practice of freedom. Yeah? So a transgressive approach to teaching, to education, as the means or as the practice of freedom. And this kind of transgressive thinking and acting in words and deeds is important, I believe. Also, if you think of the word transgression or anything that starts with a trans, recalls associations of transgressing or overstepping fixed norms, or the crossover of predetermined concepts, of the transition and deboundering, so kind of all forms of boundary work, basically. So that's number one, move against boundaries. Number two, sorry, this is a great one. If you've seen Fargo, so you gotta hit walls. You know, it's a rough business. Moving against boundaries is not an easy, it's an uphill battle, but you have to do it. And you might hit your wall, your head quite often running against the wall. But I do believe it's important and it's worth it. So that's rule number one. Number two is crash parties. What do I mean with that? Well, think of the Trojan horse. It's a beautiful design. It's a beautiful architectural and design example. It's aesthetically pleasing, constructively speaking. It's perfectly done. It seems harmless, but it's a way to kind of get beyond the walls, to get in and then be behind the walls. And I think that we all have to become Trojan horses. It's at least one of my missions here and at any institution that I work in. And the message behind this is, with crash parties, is you should go to parties that you're not invited to. You should go to places that you shouldn't be at. And you should be interested in stuff that you don't care about. It's really important. Like, broaden your horizon, crash parties, don't be afraid. Just go. Like, go uninvited, go unexpected. And these are real advice, and they're also metaphorical advice, both ways. Take them as you like. Number three is ignorance is bliss. What I want to say is that sometimes not knowing all the rules and regulations, norms and forms lets you move more freely. In his lessons to what he calls intellectual emancipation, the French philosopher Jacques Rancière called it the principle of the ignorant schoolmaster. Have you ever heard of Jacques Rancière and the ignorant schoolmaster? No. I think I will have a lot of literature links on Moodle for all of you guys to kind of follow up to. It's a beautiful text, and he literally believes that it's actually helpful not to know what you're teaching, to hence ignorance is bliss. And he does that by retelling the story of Joseph Jacotot, who was a French school teacher in exile, who discovered in the early 19th century a very unconventional teaching method that basically spread panic throughout the learned community of Europe. He came as a French-speaking teacher to Belgium, and he couldn't speak Flemish, and he just taught without knowing the language of the country that he worked in. So it's also, again, an image, but I do really believe that in academic context, ignorance is many times bliss. And number 4, intelligence is ecosystemic. What I mean with this is that we are not alone. Intelligence does not occur in isolation. I said this before, or as the great Donna Haraway said, to be one, you have to be many. Like, we have to understand that in order also to, it's wild out there. The problems we're facing in this world right now on every level is hyper complex, but we will definitely not be able to address them if we don't think ecosystemically and understand that even our intelligence works ecosystemically. And there's another one to kind of recommend here is Lynn Margulis. She wrote, she's a biologist, a fantastic book called The Symbiotic Planet. And she also said that like life didn't take over the world by competition, but by networking. And that's important. So use the intelligence in the room. That's also why I said, like, talk to your students. Like, that's the biggest, like, fuck us teachers here. We won't tell you much, but your peers is where you can really work with, where you can really learn something, you can build communities. So don't focus on us here, focus on the ones sitting next to you and behind you, in front of you. And number 5 is take notes. That means learn to look, to observe, literally take notes, stay curious, stay hungry, and take a slice from everything. You don't have to accept or dig everything that's being said, but I call it the panini principle. Take a slice of this, take a slice of that, and make your perfect sandwich. But take notes, like be aware, like always have your pen ready to write that. And in that also embrace this kind of ecstasy of influences of all things around us. And number 6, iteration is necessary. So repetition, doing it over and over again is necessary. You will never hit the mark the first time you try. It's just not happening. It doesn't matter what you're studying, yeah? So don't wait, for you to lay that golden egg that you hold preciously. Don't be precious. The golden egg is not happening like that. You have to throw out tens and thousands of, Bruce Mau called it low-resolution ideas, like fast and cheap. Just throw them out. Like whenever you're starting a project, architecture, design, fashion, whatever it is, throw out these like low-resolution ideas. And don't be precious about that stuff. Because quality, I believe, actually needs quantity. You will not do it the first time around. You have to do it over and over again to hit a certain amount, a certain, let's say, level of quality. And number 7, also very dear to me, education is never neutral. It's, in the words of Paulo Freire, there's no such thing as a neutral education. Education either functions as an instrument to bring conformity or freedom. And as an educator, and I do this passionately with all my heart, I try to convey, let's say, basic democratic values, such as human dignity, equal rights for all, regardless of gender, origin, or religion. And in doing that, I don't have to postulate a concrete political position in order to be political, because everything we do is political. And to me, education is a political act in helping to educate students in a critical and respectful dialogue with one another, no matter the background. Because I believe that our society, our, let's say, democratic society here, is very much built on the notions of cultivated consensus, we agree, and conflict, we disagree. And that's fine. We don't have to agree on all matters. That's something that we really have to cultivate, but this is a political act. So to say it again with Paulo Freire, education is the means by which men and women deal critically with reality and discover how to participate in the transformation of the world. Number 8, epistemic disobedience. So, meaning, however, don't be fooled by the system and always question the hubris of any point zero or any imperative or dominant narrative. So Mignolo, a critical thinker, decolonial thinker, he came up with this idea of epistemic disobedience as a strategy for resisting matrices of power, in particular colonial matrices of power, and he called for this epistemic disobedience. But more than just an epistemological, do you know what epistemological, epistemic means? Okay, I see shaking heads. That means any theory of knowledge. how things are, what they are. Yeah, it's epistemology, like the theory of knowledge, how we know what things are and what's right. So this is more than just an epistemological project directed against academic discourse. It is a form of disobedience that questions the established regulatory system in context of justification, as well as their power-based validity. So truth, I believe, should be decentralized, and there is no such thing as one single truth or one single narrative. There's another interesting thinker that inspired me a lot called Paul Feyerabend. He argued similarly in a work called, a beautiful summer rain in the background here, called Against Method, Outline of an Anarchistic Theory of Knowledge in the 70s, and he calls it the epistemological anarchism. So it's the imposition of methodological rules that is rejected rather than the uses of methods altogether. And we're coming to an end. Number 9 should have been number 1 to me, be kind and rewind, meaning think of others, your neighbors, your partners, anyone and anything. Be gentle, be soft, be attentive to yourself and others, take care, practice care for yourself and for others. And that's not an easy task. None of the points, basically, that I'm making, it's all funny and my images and memes, etc. But they're not easy, and they shouldn't be, no? I often fail, and it's actually okay. And you probably know that experience too, but with the mantra of Samuel Beckett, try again, fail better. So, be kind, rewind means also think of those that come after you. You know, help them to have a better start. Don't be a gatekeeper, but a door opener. And don't leave a mess behind you. And last but not least, numero 10, in the wise words of Jay-Z, finish your breakfast. This means a lot to me. Personally, it means get to work, finish your business. But also, it means to me, be ready and prepare for the day. You know, have a proper breakfast. And thirdly, it means be humble. Don't start planning your lunch, your dinner, your coffee, your after-dinner plans before you haven't even fucking finished the breakfast. And that's really important. Finish your breakfast first. So, that said, I'd like to close, once again, the wise words of the notorious B.I.G. Follow these rules, you'll have mad bread to break up. But this brings me to you. So after having opened up to you and after having shared my secret sauce, it's now your turn to find out what your personal signature is, what your DNA is. And this is a task that's apart from this kind of weekly reflection, personal reflection that I talked about. You don't have to send this to me. This is for you. This is private, no? But literally do it for yourself. Yeah? Really sit down and think about, okay, what's my signature? And I repeat, you don't have to have a professional background. You're just students. You may be in your first semester, maybe in your master's student. It doesn't matter. But like the DNA is deeper. It goes way back. It goes back to childhood. But it's something that interests you, something that kind of makes up your DNA. And this is also important. What you get out of academia, out of your studies here, is, sorry to say that, entirely up to you. Don't hope or wait for answers or solutions here from anyone but yourself or the collective that you work in. Definitely not from us, the educators. We are here, ideally, just to kind of help and support you on your own way and on your own individual path. And I would like to close with one of them, my favorite quotes from the initially mentioned late Bell Hooks, that I firmly believe in, and that's the classroom remains the most radical space of possibility in the academy. And I would like to invite us all, you here in the room and us, the others joining us online, to make this happen in this semester as well. So to make this kind of worthwhile for all of us. I will not be delivering it to you, we'll have to do it together. And I'm very excited to enter this adventure. Each semester is a new adventure for me too, a new exploration with you together. There's a couple of ways how you can stay up to date. Obviously, if you're in the Moodle and you're a student of the UDK, you'll get these kind of reminders of the courses, but there's also an Instagram called Post Protocol, which is only about all the, let's say, educational formats that I'm doing here at the UDK. There's my own Instagram. It's only professional stuff, so no funny business, but you can also see there other stuff that's outside of the UDK that I'm doing that might be of interest to you. And there's 2 websites, again, apart from the UDK websites, there's JUXTAPOSITIONS.net and the healingarts.online, where you can see all the other previous speakers and see also the program of this semester. So enough said, I would say, and I'm now also open to your possible questions. So for now, thank you very much for your attention. And as I said before, you don't have to have a question, but there's, again, no shame in the game. It can be any old question. Yes, Stan.
Now that you said before that you had recently this kind of revelation how to put it together, like all this, what you are now doing, right? So did that change also the procedure, how you're doing it? It kind of mold you, it kind of makes something to you, apart from, of course, have this vision and say like, okay, now I'm doing that, and like that, that also helps you now, like how it is this transformation.
Yeah. So for the online audience, maybe they can't hear it, I repeat the question quickly. Stan asked whether kind of following the lead of Virgil Abloh and trying to find my own signature and making these kind of bullet points, whether this somehow also had an effect on my practice then afterwards, the reciprocity of these things. And yes, totally. I think it's such a great exercise because it will influence how you will work later as well. And you realize, okay, these are the key points. Because a lot of things we do unconsciously. And the kind of, I believe that we should be much more reflective about things. And literally look at ourselves in the mirror and kind of see, okay, these are the points. So yes, sitting down and properly thinking, what are the common denominators in all of my works? Really kind of got me much more precise in what I'm doing. And it's a great way to just articulate yourself and say, okay, these are the 4 points, or 3 or 5 or 6 or whatever yours are, or maybe it's only 1, it's also fine. It helped me a lot to kind of get a better understanding of what I'm doing and also in future projects. Yeah. Another question. Okay, you dare one more. Don't be shy. Yes. All the non-university students, that's a good example here. Okay.
It seems that you were very ambitious in your life, but I think I have sometimes the issue that I'm very ambitious and I want to achieve so many things at once that I kind of get unmotivated to achieve them. It's like a fight in myself. How was you proceeding this in your life?
Okay, I'll try to repeat this. So you said that I seem to have been very ambitious in my life, but from your experience, sometimes this kind of great ambition of doing a lot of things also comes with almost a paralysis of not being able to do anything at all. And I think that's something that we all struggle with. There's actually a term called the analysis paralysis. Once you start analyzing certain things, you get kind of paralyzed. For me, really important was actually a text, a book. For me, often it's kind of music, art, texts that really do change something, like the talk by Virgil Abloh, or there was a text, an essay by Jonathan Lethem. He's an American nonfiction writer, and it's called The Ecstasy of Influences. And in this text, he speaks, the title, let's start. The title is a take on a book by Harold Bloom. He was a literature critic, called The Anxiety of Influences. And that describes a situation that we all know, that there's a certain artist, a writer, an architect, designer that we are heavily, heavily inspired by. Wow, it's a heavy fucking rain here. And so you have to stay in here anyway, so you should come up with more questions, guys. So that there's a certain anxiety of, oh, how can I ever reach that level? And it creates anxiety. And he says in this essay, The Ecstasy of Influences, no, embrace it. It's a celebration. There's a lot of influence. Just do it. So that really helped me. And then I realized whatever I do, I'll do mistakes. And to not be, as I said earlier, don't be precious about it. Like the one thing that holds you back is thinking, I have to perfectionize this. Like 90% of my stuff is definitely not perfected. There's always holes, like spelling mistakes or errata of sorts in everything, and it's okay. Like there's a lot of great works are unfinished, and I think yeah, this kind of perfectionism can really be in the way of actually following your ambitions. So like kind of trying to let go of that can be quite helpful. So you can either go in the rain or you come up with a better question, or another question, I mean. Yes, Jakob.
Not really a question, I just wanted to add a thought. You spoke about the importance of collaboration, and you kind of rejected the idea that you kind of rejected individualism, and that the idea of the survival of the fittest. And I think to add on that, you could also say survival of the fittest is actually true, but the unit of selection is not an individual person but a group. So for the longest time in our developmental history, we were living in small groups, like 100 and 200 people, and we are actually very adapted to socialize. So for the individual, you could say it's not survival of the fittest, but survival of the friendliest, the one who is networking and collaborating, but the unit of selection is actually a group.
Beautiful comment, more than a question. It will be hard to find better words than you used yourself, but in addition, for the online audience, it's you kind of stressed also the point of collaboration, and it's not only against the survival of the fittest, but survival of the friendliest, but that the unit of selection is the group. Yeah. Yeah, so that's true. Yeah, but that's the point that also Kropotkin tries to make, that in order to survive, you have to think in groups and work in groups and live in groups. That's true. Okay, one last chance for a question. Yes. Oh, two. Woohoo! Now it's on. Yes, please, Christian.
I'm thinking a little about education as well at the moment, and also the role that algorithms of machine learning could play in that now, and how do you see that, like the things, I don't know, like also in terms of collaboration, or if there's some other entities or agents in the game, or things they can be also between us somehow. Can it be like some virtual teaching avatars or something like that?
So Christine asked about like also reflecting about education in general and what are other agencies that should be taken into account when doing that. That ranges, I guess, from artificial intelligence to other intelligences. That's something that I'm thinking about a lot actually recently, but for another project. I believe in something like planetary intelligences. And the human intelligence, I would say, is just a very, very small part of it. You know, think of the life of plants, or the animal kingdom, or the parliament of things, what Bruno Latour calls the actor network theory, that things are also things. Let's say there's no differentiation between a subject and an object, and I firmly believe in that. Or artificial intelligence, or indigenous knowledges and intelligences, even to, let's say, paraspaces, paranormal intelligence. I think our understanding of what we consider intelligence is very limited. And the only thing, there's a great saying that I learned from a student last semester with regards to artificial intelligence, which is interesting because artificial intelligence lets us think about all the other possible intelligences that could be around or are around as well. That I'm not afraid of artificial intelligence, I'm just afraid of human stupidity. And that kind of sums it up in a way. And there was another question from you.
So you mentioned a lot of statements that I agree are very important for the creative process. But I think a lot of them can be taken negatively, right? So I wonder what for you is the difference, for example, between searching for your signature and unhealthy authorship and like star architecture and stuff like that. Or saying that ignorance is bliss, right? Or the Trojan horse. So
Yeah.
the healthy amount of breaking the boundaries. How can we do that in a healthy way?
Yeah, very good observation. So your name was Barbara. I just mentioned that a lot of the statements that are made can be seen, let's say, in a two-sided way. They are positive acclamations of, hey, you should do that, but there's also a certain kind of negative connotation to it. Or almost an aggressive notion, crashing parties, the Trojan horse, move against boundaries. Yes, that's true. That's why I put in Be Kind, Rewind at the end. But that's actually, it's an issue that I'm still struggling with. And I don't really know what the way to go is, because obviously I'm making provocative statements here. I'm putting a meme image behind it, etc. And I'm very consciously using sayings that people could kind of react to in one way or another. But I'm trying to provoke here. And I think that's something we should be doing anyways. But it's still something that I'm also, trying to find an answer to, because we're working now in institutions of educational institutions or museum institutions for like over 2 decades now. I don't really know. I think we have to be very firm in a way that we need a certain form of aggression to do anything in here, because these systems are really static. They're fixed this place here. You have no idea. And other institutions, the same. I mean, again, there's spaces for dialogue, it's an open space, but still, you have to really work against it, against the grain. But it's interesting, I had a talk once where I also talked about different points like this, and one of the listeners also said, but they're so aggressive, we're so aggressive, we need more gentleness. And it's like, yeah, I totally agree, that's why there's Be Kind and Rewind, and I also really believe in like radical softness. With all of that said, I believe at the end of the day in radical softness towards us and towards the others. But we need a certain form of also, like there needs a certain form of, what's the right word? Firmness, thank you. A certain kind of firmness and sturdiness and is needed. So I think should be, I think that's Daphne said that, Daphne Ayas, one of the lectures, and it's beautiful. She said we should be more open-hearted and hard-headed. And that really hits it. Keep your heart open, and the head hard. I think that's kind of where I stand. Another question? Otherwise, this could be a nice closing. No, there's another one. Okay, we get one more, and then I'll let you go, guys.
No, actually, it's not a question, but I would like to share something with all the creatives and all the minds that are here in this room. I'm a multidisciplinary artist, and I identify really a lot with what Lukas is making. And I would like to invite you to don't be shy at the moment to ask or interact now, especially because of these kind of difficulties, moments that are happening in the world, plus the technology's advantage or something. So it would be super nice that humans come back to interact between each other. So don't be shy to ask to friend, hey, you that are studying music and I'm studying, and filming or something. Can you do this, the track for this short film or stuff like that? I believe also into the collaborations between us will bring us together to some better projects or something. And otherwise, big industries will come and kill all the creativity that are in this beautiful artist scene in the world. So that's all what I wanted to say.
Yeah, wonderful, great closing. I mean, better than I could do it. So another appraisal for collaboration here. Yeah, but it's another thing for tonight. You're probably sitting next to someone that you're studying with. Like, don't leave this room before having said hello to someone behind you, in front of you. Like, shake hands, say what you're studying, what your name is. Okay? Promise? Wonderful. Please do it. But this is the space of possibility that we have here. That said, thank you very much.